I feel as if at times I'm horrible at planning. And that goes into a lot of different avenues in my life, whether it be trying to schedule out different events or trying to plan for a trip. Things I feel like at times I feel like I'm very horrible at planning. And I feel like I'm very bad at it too for this podcast. It might just seem something simple to do and, come up with the subject. But for me, as someone who constantly overthinks about different things, I find it kind of hard to do so, especially the more that I talk about certain things and afraid of you repeating some topics. But this week, thanks to my wife, I have something to talk about, and that is the topic of toxic masculinity. And that's not because she thinks I'm toxic or anything like that. I sincerely hope not. But it's something that she knows that I'm very passionate about and also very vocal about. I'm not afraid to voice my opinion or to call people out when they are not being cool. They're not being good, in relationships or just in general. And toxic masculinity was definitely something that I feel was very implemented in my life, sort of ingrained into my brain from a young age. And I do want to say that it's unfortunate, right? It is very unfortunate that, and I don't want to boil it down to just growing up in a Hispanic household, but growing up Hispanic definitely did play a part in that. I feel like as if there are certain beliefs and certain things that you just never do, you should never do as a boy, as a man. There's certain things that you need to live up to, things that you need to do in a certain way, and if you don't, you're going to get ridiculed for it, you're going to get made fun of, or people are just going to essentially make your life hell, right? Because you chose that you don't want to live or conform under this toxic behavior that is unfortunately become so engraved and ingrained into what it is to be a man, or just what it is growing up as a man, as a boy, a male, right? Growing up male. I definitely think that growing up, I unfortunately was led to believe certain things, right? You go to the grocery store, and it starts off by simple things like that, going to the grocery store or going to a store, and there is a boys aisle of toys and there's a girl aisle of toys. If you The only reason why me as a boy was going down the girls aisle was because we're going to a birthday party and it's a girl's birthday party, right? God forbid we would get them something from the boys aisle, because everybody would question it or just think very wrong of you for even assuming such a thing, right? Why would you bring a girl's toy to a boy's birthday party? That's something you never do, right? What are you thinking of my son? What are your ideas of my son if this is the toy you're getting them, right? And God forbid that you're a boy, that you grow up as a male and you like those sorts of things, right? That is something that was very much the sentiment or the ideology growing up in a Hispanic household. And I'm pretty sure that it is like that in many different cultures, right? Just that ideology. And again, it's very unfortunate because growing up, it made me very insecure. It made me very insecure and made me question why I was into some of the things that I was into, I feel like at the time. And I felt as if I was in the wrong for trying to get into some of the things that I wanted to get into, right? Or even starting to like some of the things that I was potentially interested in, right? And when I say that, I don't mean anything like crazy. I'm just talking about simple things like I like this pink shirt. Can't wear it because it's pink. Guys aren't supposed to like pink. I like this certain cartoon, or I think this toy is cool. You can't. That's a girl's thing. You're not a girl, are you? You're not a girl. You're not. No eres una niña. And hearing that's you're not a girl in Spanish. Hearing that, I feel like as a little kid, was very. It made me feel like, no, I'm not that. I'm not that. I'm not a girl, right? It's just the the way that it was said to me, the way that it was said or is said, made it seem like it was a bad thing, right? It made it seem like liking those things was a bad thing, right? Things like potentially like a doll, even if you're not even like playing it like normal, like a doll, like, right, like they portray in the commercials. Maybe you're creating like a crazy scene for like an action movie. You're recreating that with your action figures, and it requires a girl toy. You know, even still, you get caught with the doll, you're eres una niña, que eres una niña, you know what I mean? Eres marica. And I don't even want to say what that means in English, right? Because it gets into territory that, you know, I feel like it just feels harsh. Some of the words in Spanish, some of those insults in Spanish just feel like extremely harsh, like really really harsh compared to their English counterpart. It's fucking harsh, I feel like. And to grow up like that is not healthy, right? And it is very unfortunate, I feel like, that I, you know, those are the ideologies that were engraved in my head, especially at a very young age. And again, that goes for a lot of different people in different kinds of cultures. But I've come across in my adulthood, I've come across those things even still, right? I feel like as if those traditions, it's going to take a lot to break that mold, to break those stereotypes, to break those, that way of thinking, right? With being a man, with being male, it comes with a lot, right? It comes with a sense of you have to take responsibility. You have to be a man, right? And being a man meant that you had to provide for a family. You had to be ready for everything. You have to be the rock. You can't show emotions. You can't be vulnerable. You can't do certain things because that's the woman's job, right? That's the woman's job. That's what you're led to believe. The crying, the cooking, the cleaning, those things are for the woman, right? And I fucking hate, and I'm not gonna get into specifics, but I hate that movement, right? That for a bit became very predominant because of a certain individual that I will not name because I don't want to give him the fucking time of day. But the certain individual took over what it like the manosphere, right? And they influenced a generation that is very impressionable, that is chronically online, always wants to be on their phones, always wants to be on their computers, always wants to be on social media, and they want to feel validated. They want to feel as if they belong, and they're looking for anyone with that sort of confidence, that sort of confidence in their voice that they don't have, that to lead them, to guide them. They looked up to them, right? And this individual did that, right? They were all over the world. If you guys don't know who I'm talking about at this point, then you probably, like, God bless you, right? But if you do, then this person did that. And it really started to scare me. It really started to scare me because at the time I was working in person at a school. And it was when this person was going rampant about spreading their beliefs about what it was to be a man, how you should treat women, what you should do as a man, what your roles are as a man, etc., etc., etc. And some of these kids, again, super impressionable kids, teenagers, 12, 13, 14 year olds, who are, again, looking for some sort of guidance or that role model to teach them how to become uh an alpha, right? That superior male, right? And with that came, you know, how you should treat women and how women, what the role of the woman is in a relationship, right? Or just simply, you know, if you're not at a certain point at in life at a certain age, then you're a failure, that you should just give up. You're not a man if you haven't become a millionaire at age 20, right? And that's another thing that I want to talk about later on, how that sort of ideology being spewed to an impressionable generation is so damaging. The fact that toxic masculinity was being glamorized, right? It wasn't even portrayed as toxic masculinity. It was portrayed as that's just how things should be, is very scary and it's very dangerous, right? Because again, you're taking these impressionable kids, you're essentially telling them that this is how things are. And again, this is an older person. This is somebody who, you know, has experience doing crazy shit and has, you know, the car and has the money to back up what they're saying, essentially, right? And say, look, you want what I have? This is how I got here. I didn't get here by playing second to a woman, right? Essentially. And so you get these kids treating their treating their mutuals, the people, the women that they interact with, their parents, their mom, their teachers. And it became very hard. I had conversations, many conversations with the women that I would work with in the previous school that I worked at, and they were nervous about the way that some of these kids would talk to them. They were scared. They've never dealt with a group of kids that so quickly would just tell them no, that they weren't scared to cuss, they weren't scared to get out of their seat whenever. And it really did play a part in how the rest of the school year went. And it was a very rowdy and a very chaotic year, I will say, when that was like rampant. That ideology was rampant, right? And I put myself in a situation like that, right, where those ideologies were so ingrained into my head at a young age, that going into my teenage years, and I've talked about my teenage years plenty, but it definitely played into that. Going into my teenage years, it made me believe as if I couldn't dress a certain way. I couldn't say that I liked a certain thing because, again, I would be called the F slur. I would be called gay, and for whatever reason, and again, you got to take into consideration the time that we were in. It was 2011, 2012. The concept, the word gay was very much used as an insult, and I feel like it could be still to this day, but more so then, was used as an insult and was used as a way to describe someone who wasn't really necessarily gay, but dressed a certain way that didn't fit with the preppy, the jock, the norm, essentially, right? The normal, right? If even just because I had longer hair than the normal dude, I was called gay, right? And it was used in such an insulting manner that it made me believe, like, I understand that back then the word gay was meant a lot of different things, right? Besides, homosexuality. But it was still used in a way for you to describe someone who, was dressing different, who dared to dress different, like certain things, right? And that was something that I was afraid of. That was something that I was afraid of. And not because I knew that I wasn't gay, but when I did think about, someone who was in a gay relationship or a homosexual relationship, I it wasn't a thing where, like, other people who think of that way, that I wasn't angry, right? Some people think of people that are in same-sex relationships and they get angry, right? I have no fucking idea why, but they get angry, right? And I might know that it has something to do with their upbringing and maybe previous experiences. There's a lot that plays into that anger, right? You're not born hating gay people, right? It comes from somewhere, it stems from somewhere, and there's a lot of different factors that influence that, right? But for me, I never felt angry. I felt confused and maybe jealous at times, because I would see people in these same-sex relationships, and it wasn't even just a thing of being in a same-sex relationship for me. It was just the fact that they allowed themselves to say, I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. I love this person, and this person clearly loves me, because they don't care about what other people think. They don't care what words are being thrown their way. They don't care what slurs are being said about them. This person loves me, and I'm going to show it to the fucking world. And I feel like as if I felt some sort of confusion because it played against it went against everything that I was essentially told was how things should be, right? It played against it went against everything. So for me, I found it kind of foreign that people just allowed themselves to be and express themselves however they wanted, right? And then that kind of led me to be a little bit jealous. Like, there was some underlying jealousy there, because again, I wanted to do certain things a certain way. I wanted to dress a certain way, but I felt like I couldn't. But these people, they just didn't care, right? Were they getting ridiculed? 9 times out of 10, they probably will be getting ridiculed. But they didn't care because they felt comfortable with themselves, and that's just who they are, and they embraced themselves as who they are, and they were happy to go around being themselves. And I definitely felt as if I was jealous, as if I was very jealous of that. I wanted to have that sense of knowing who I was, and being okay with who I wanted to be and how I wanted to dress and express myself. Not just dress, but just in general express myself. And so high school, I felt, I wasn't really able to do that, right? And I mean, I was in the scene kid, clique, right? And I felt like as if some of the things that I did do to express myself, I would felt comfortable doing so because I was surrounded with a group of friends at the time that were already getting called every name in the book. We are already the outcast, right? We are already pretty much secluded from every other group that there was, every other clique in high school. And so they already didn't care what people were saying about them because they were going to get shit anyways. And that started to rub off on me, right? I would literally just wear shirts like this. If you guys are listening to it on Spotify, I'm wearing just a black shirt, a berserk shirt, and I was doing the same thing back then. I would wear a band t-shirt of my favorite bands and skinny jeans. I would wear a studded belt. I had my hair longer than the usual dude, and it felt good. Even if I wasn't doing anything crazy or, obscene, it felt good to be able to express myself to some extent. But again, there were other things that I was trying to or wanting to get into or potentially express that I just could not. I felt like as if I could not do because I didn't want to be ridiculed, right? But I definitely think that, and getting back, I had like a massive brain fart. Sorry about that. But though when I was in that first high school, I mentioned I was in two high schools. I was in one of the main high schools here in my town. I started fucking up. I was sent to an alternative high school that had a dress code, a uniform dress code. I couldn't express myself. I couldn't dress however I wanted to dress because I had to wear a fucking uniform. Unfortunately, and that's the thing that I looked forward the most. That if I had to look back and hate how I went about doing high school, was the fact that I was so eager to get out of middle school. Which again, in my middle school, it's not like how it is now, where you're allowed to essentially dress however you want or have a free dress day every day. In my middle school, elementary school, we had to wear a uniform. Getting into high school, that changed. I was so excited. I was going to be able to wear the clothes that I wanted to wear. But then I started fucking up and I was sent to an alternative high school that had a dress code, a uniform dress code. And so I fucked it up. I fucked it all up for myself. And there wasn't really a way for me to truly express myself outside of, going after school and hanging out with my friends, right? But they already knew, they were already my friends, right? They already knew. And that was probably for the better, right? Because you get into this alternative high school where people are fucking up. There's a lot of people who are fucking up academically and behavior wise, and they're sent there. It's better to have everybody on an even playing field, and not and avoid that whole thing of people getting ridiculed for the way that they dress when everybody's dressing up the same. So I definitely think that it's probably for the best there, because you remove that from the equation, right? You remove that sense of bullying. But with that, people are so fucking creative. I feel like if you legitimately want to harass somebody, you get creative, and it doesn't matter if you're wearing the same thing that they're wearing. Just because they look different than you are going to make fun of them. And it's fucking insane the way that we as humans work, right? We could literally be dressed the same way. We could have our hair the exact same way. We could have the same whatever, but that one thing, that one slight thing, your eyebrows look different. Maybe you have a mustache. Maybe you have a mole here. Your eye color is different. We will come up with the way to ridicule others, right? And I feel like as if I, at one point, did not want to stand out whatsoever. And I think it took up until even until I was married, right? I feel like that I felt very comfortable being who I wanted to be. I told this story in a previous episode, but one of the instances that really stands out to me was I my wife at one point, and this my wife has done that several times, where she sees something and she's like, "You would look really cool in this." She was like, "You, I think you would look really hot in boots. I think you would look really cool in boots, or boots, cute in boots." And I was just like so against, not super against, but I would question like, I don't know, I don't know how it would look. I don't know if I want to put myself up to that. And I was making a big deal out of it because again, it was something new, something that I was gonna change it up. I was getting out of my comfort zone, and it also plays into the fact that I was raised to be a certain way or whatever. And the moment that she bought me those boots and I wore them, and I wore them a couple times, I never wanted to take them off. I didn't fucking care that if it was 150 degrees outside, I was gonna wear my fucking boots because they look cool as fuck. My wife thought I looked cool. My wife thought I looked cute, and that's all I give a fuck about, dude. You know what I mean? If my friends tell me I look cool, fuck yeah, dude. If my wife tells me I look cute, dude, I'm wearing that shit. I'm wearing that shit to bed. The boots stay on in bed, motherfucker. You know what I mean? But it's those things that really really changed everything for me, right? I think having a strong support system definitely plays into you allowing yourself to be comfortable with who you are as a person. And I find it very, I think it's definitely a damn shame because I understand that some people are brought up a certain way, but these people who are insanely spiteful that would call you every single name in the book are just some of the most insecure, some of the most petty, some of the most toxic individuals that I've ever met. Right? Some of the most scared individuals that I've ever met. They're scared of meeting people that are so confident in themselves that when they're faced by it, the only thing that they can do to bring you to their level is to ridicule you, to make fun of you, and unfortunately at times get physical with you and literally physically harm you, right? Because they cannot stand the fact that you are different than them, that you might be happier than them, that it just doesn't make sense. People are afraid of things that don't make sense, that it doesn't make sense that you can be so happy, dressed the way that you are. So I'm going to do something that's going to make you feel like shit because I don't want you to be happy. You're not allowed to be happy, because you look a certain way and you like a certain thing. And I've run into it. I've watched people literally crumble right before my eyes when they're met with that same type of energy, right? And honestly, I feel like one of the common occurrences that I've seen is, people who say homophobic remarks or say uh things that potentially are not okay to say. Again, one of the most common things that I see is homophobic remarks. When they are met with that sort of energy, they are the ones that act sus, right? They say the homophobic remarks, but they also act sus. And I'm gonna say act sus because I'm pretty sure that people know what I mean by acting sus. They act sus, they do a certain things, and they laugh it off as just joke. But the minute that you give them the same energy is the minute that they crumble, the minute that they easily just, they're like, they don't know what's going on and they cannot handle it. They get defensive. They make themselves the victim, right? And it's weird. It's weird to see it unfold. And I've seen it unfold before my eyes. And it's a very interesting, it's just a very interesting chain of events that happens. Like they go through all the emotions, and it's just very baffling, to be honest, because again, these people are the most insecure. They are unfortunately the types of people that were raised a certain way and had things going on in their childhood that led them to that point, to be spiteful, to be hateful towards a certain group of individuals. And I'm very thankful, right? Because again, it took me a bit for me to really be happy with the person that I am, to be comfortable with allowing myself to like certain things. Another example for me, and it's a pretty big one. Well, two, but starting it off with one. For the longest time, I didn't understand K-pop, and I'm not just talking about the language or anything like that. I'm talking about the fact that people liked it, right? That dudes liked it, right? I could not get into it. I just did not. But it wasn't because the music sucked or anything like that I didn't like the music. It was just I didn't like that people liked it. And I just didn't really have a good reason. I just said that it sucked, right? Same goes for TikTok, right? I assume that TikTok is one thing, right? And I think that goes for everybody. But I assume that TikTok is one thing, that it's just teenagers doing dumb dances or just people dancing or singing, lip syncing or whatever. And it's so quick for you to dismiss people. It's so quick for you to dismiss something if you already have that preconceived notion of something. And I don't even think that my thinking of it was super original. It didn't come from anything personal. I think I just took what was spewed to me and, said in online or anything like that, and I took it as my own. I took that as my own way of thinking. And that's very dangerous. And again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that when you when you're so online and you surround yourself with something and you're dealing with algorithms at this point that is going to feed you something that you like the certain thing, that you like the video covering a certain topic or a certain thing, and the algorithm is going to keep feeding you those things, right? And so once you like one alpha male video, then the algorithm's gonna be like, okay, this person liked this type of video, so I'm gonna recommend them similar videos. And then you start going down the rabbit hole without even really noticing, right? And that happened with me in the terms of K-pop, right? But first, TikTok, I hated it. Again, I just thought that it was silly. I thought it was such a waste of time, and it might be still a waste of time. But in terms of the content, I felt as if it was like I didn't understand it. My wife got into TikTok, and I was still a hater, right? I was still a hater. And I wasn't even paying attention to what she was watching. I was just assuming what she was watching and consuming and thought what it was, right? But at some point, I started to pay attention. I started to pay attention to some of the videos that she was getting, and I gave in. I said, you know what? I'm going to give myself, I'm just going to download it. And if I don't like it, I'm going to delete it. What ended up happening that night? I think I started going on TikTok at like 10 p.m. at night, and I stayed awake until like fucking 5 in the morning, just mindlessly scrolling, watching some of the most curated, some of the best content I've ever consumed. And I just fell in love with it. I'm still on fucking TikTok, dude. TikTok is insane. The algorithm that they have is insane. And it just fed me everything that I wanted to watch: anime, art, cooking videos, skits, just everything that I was into was perfectly curated. And it's insane. It's kind of dangerous, right? The brain rot route that you could go down with TikTok, but it legitimately just changed my way of thinking. And I remember waking up and my wife said, "Did you delete TikTok?" And I said, "No. I actually fell asleep at like 5 in the morning because I was watching this dude. I went down this rabbit hole of several TikTokers, and I love it. I'm sorry for doubting it." I'm sorry for doubting it, you know what I mean? When I came to K-pop, before any stands, any fan of K-pop fucking comes after me, I love it now. I love it. I fucking love it. My favorite K-pop group, New Jeans. It doesn't get any fucking better than New Jeans, and I will defend New Jeans till the day I fucking die. But it took me a bit to get there. And again, I didn't my opinion of it wasn't really necessarily original. It was just something that I took from what was being said online or whatever, that I took as my own, and I just didn't really even give it a fair shake. But my best friend was into it at the time. My best friend, he maybe he thought the same way, but he gave in and he just started listening to it, and he fell in love with it, and so did I. It's some of the most catchy, some of the most vibrant and fun music, and just really addicting music too. There's a K-pop group for literally everyone. I feel as if understand now the concept of boy bands, right? Just as it was back then with boy bands such as NSYNC and all those famous ones that were back then. I understand it now. And I'm a man getting into my 30s. I'm a dude that's about to, reach my 30s in a couple of years, and I fucking love it. And it's so addicting, honestly. It's so fucking addicting. I have a couple albums too, New Jeans. Like, I feel like I don't think I have anything else besides New Jeans. But it's things like that in a million years, if I was a teenager, I would never admit to liking. It would be literally something that I just do in the privacy of my own room, with the door locked, with me wearing headphones low so that the audio doesn't bleed from my headphones. God forbid anybody caught me listening to that, right? And it goes into other avenues such as anime. I fucking love Sailor Moon. I grew up watching Sailor Moon, but I always said that I preferred Dragon Ball Z, and I think I do still, but Sailor Moon was definitely high up there for me for one of my favorite animes ever. And one of the biggest things for me when it comes to the topic of toxic masculinity was that I never wanted to, and this is probably like the most important one, was that I never wanted to succumb to the unfortunate stereotypes that men have created throughout history, right? I've watched relationships crumble. I've watched people be in relationships where it just looks miserable. It just reads to me as if, how the fuck are these people together when it's just so toxic? It's just not healthy to be in this type of relationship, right? And I feel as if older generations are potentially still with each other regardless of how things operate, just out of comfort, because they don't know anything else. This is just a life that they've known forever, and so they don't allow themselves to move on, or they don't allow themselves to make that change, right? Because this is their life and they feel some sort of comfort. You ever run into a video where, or anybody that gets in a relationship, they get broken up with because it isn't toxic enough, it's not entertaining enough, right? Compared to their old relationship where it was just a fucking mess. It was so toxic. They were people just treating each other like shit. But that's what people are used to, and it's unfortunate. You know, people get broken up with because they feel as if their partner feels as if they need to test them, they need to act a certain way, you know, they need to be mad at the fact that they want to do something, you know. And it's a goddamn shame, and I've seen it happen. But I didn't want that for myself. I grew up with a mother that very much loved me, a mother that really wanted the best for me in life. I grew up with an older sister that I, even still to this day, of course, I look up to her. I saw her as one of the most artistic, one of the most creative. I know she's just a creative soul all throughout. And then I had a little sister. I have a little sister who I look up to her, right? I feel like that's another thing. I feel like you need to allow yourself to look up to your younger siblings too, right? But that's a topic for another conversation. Um, I look up to her and I see her as this beautiful young woman who is incredibly talented, super athletic, super just outgoing, and just this is what I want to do. These are my goals and I'm gonna accomplish them. No doubt about it. Like nothing's I'm just it's just gonna happen. I'm gonna make it happen because I'm fucking like that. And I feel like as if I grew up in a place where I just surrounded by women, not just them, but also my grandma, who's been in my life pretty much my entire time, and she's lived in our home pretty much the entire ever since I came to the United States, and she helped take care of me. I grew up with aunts who are not blood related, but they're close friends of my mom who on weekends I would be there. I would sleep over at my cousin's house. I would call them cousins again. We're not blood related, but that's just how it fucking works, you know. They took care of me. Different personalities, different women taking care of me. That really, I I was brought up by women, right? And it's baffling because it's not baffling, right? But I say this because you would think that, oh, the men, you know, the men are the prevalent ones. They're teaching you how it is. They're teaching you how to grow up and set you up to be a successful man. But I'm gonna keep it real. A lot of the men that were in my life growing up um are, you know, perished due to their vices. They were drug addicts, alcoholics. They were treating their partners like shit. They weren't really didn't have anything necessarily going on for them that I felt as if it was influential. When I saw these women in my life, they were hardworking. They were, you know, busting their ass to make sure that their home was stable due to the fact that this man in their life was clearly couldn't put themselves together. And it's just what I grew up with. I grew up with having a big sister that moved out at a young age, pursued her dreams, did what she was that she wanted to do, and she took that leap of faith and is just one of the strongest individuals that I've ever met. My older sister. My younger sister, like I said, she didn't allow my dumb fucking antics as a teenager to influence her, and she just paved her own path and she did what was best for her. and she followed her own path. And even still, I think she's a fucking boss ass bitch because she doesn't care what anybody thinks of her. She's happy with the person that she is, and I fucking love her for that. And she makes me want to be like her. She makes me want to be like her in the sense of I want to be a certain way, and I should be allowed to be a certain way, right? And just being surrounded by these influential people, and even later on, right? Even later on in life, my wife, who is doesn't give herself enough credit, but she is one of the most intellectual people, one of the most smartest people, one of the most just caring and fucking hardworking fucking people that I've ever met, had the pleasure of meeting, have the pleasure of even being allowed to call her my fucking wife. Like the fact that I'm able to have those people in my life, my mother-in-law as well, who is her own boss. She has her own business, her own company. She does things on her own fucking time. She answers to no one but her fucking self, right? And those are the types of people that those are the types of personalities and people that I've surrounded myself with, right? For me to allow myself to give into those stereotypes, to allow myself to give in would be a goddamn shame and would be unacceptable because I was not raised to be like that. I wasn't raised to I wasn't surrounded by people doing that, right? And my mom, I fucking love my mom for this, and I think I'm like that at times. My mom is very outspoken, right? She's not afraid to tell my dad to shut up. She's not afraid to tell my dad that he's in the wrong or to fucking calm down or that what he's saying is dumb as fuck. She's not afraid to do that. She's not afraid to stand up to my dad. And I feel like a lot of people are afraid to stand up to their significant other, regardless if it's a man, regardless if it's a woman, regardless if it's anybody. I feel like at times when you're in a relationship, you're kind of afraid to um go against whatever it is that your partner has to say because it could get you into a conflict. You're afraid that it could get you into a conflict, or you're potentially afraid that it could, break something, right? Because you're in a relationship. You guys are supposed to think the same. You guys are supposed to, you know, do everything the same, or believe certain things the same, right? And for me to fall under that would be a fucking shame. And I don't ever want to allow myself, I will never allow myself to fall under those things because I have no reason to. I was raised by incredibly strong women that have influenced me for the better and influenced me for the positive, that I just don't see a reason for me to fall under that, right? To be influenced by that, right? And it's not just solely that, I working in the school district, working in schools and stuff like that. I've worked with a lot of women. I've worked with a lot of teachers that they're the head of the classroom. They're the head of they're the ones that run shit essentially, right? It's their classroom, and I've taken guidance from them. I've looked up to them. I've learned how to be a teacher through them, and so I look up to that, right? I very much take that to heart, and it's something that sticks with me, right? The people that helped me get to where I am in terms of my career, and I look back, and it's a lot of them are women. A lot of them are very intelligent, very strong, very independent women that I don't know. I just, for me to fall under that would be a shame, and I would never allow myself. I don't want to become that. I don't ever, if I'm ever lucky enough to have kids, I don't ever want to teach them that, because who am I to tell them that they're in the wrong for liking certain things or being into certain things, right? I don't want my kids to feel as if they should be afraid, or they should feel like they should not be who they are just because of my stupid beliefs or my stupid way of being brought up. Because just because my father was a certain way or is a certain way, that doesn't mean that I have to be that. I don't have to be him. I'm not him, right? And I don't want to be him. And it definitely took a bit for me to be comfortable with that, right? To be comfortable with allowing myself to paint my nails, to paint my own nails, to learn how to paint my own nails, to dye my hair, to be comfortable with having dyed hair, to to continue to go back to expressing myself with my haircut, or to just be into some silly stuff. I fucking love Sanrio. I fucking love Hello Kitty, dude. I love all that shit. And what, am I just supposed to not express it? Am I not just supposed to, am I not allowed to cover my fucking Crocs with Hello Kitty gibbets because some fucking ass was gonna make fun of me? Fuck that shit, dude. Fuck all that, right? If at the end of the day I look fucking pretty and you're jealous, and that's it. Like, I don't give a fuck what you think of me. I feel comfortable, I feel cool, I feel fine, and that's all that fucking matters to me, right? If I feel happy going out, if I feel comfortable with the way that I look when I go out, then that's all that fucking matters, right? And again, I feel like some people, they are, they see something that they just do not comprehend. And I feel like humans are afraid of things they don't understand. And going back to what I said about my thought process of when I saw somebody that was in a gay relationship or a homosexual relationship, it's something that I didn't understand. Not because of the concept of it. I understood what it meant to be gay, but it more so made me confused because, again, these people are just being themselves. They are expressing themselves, they are loving each other, and they don't give a fuck what anybody else says, right? And that was very foreign to me. Now I feel very comfortable with who I am, right? There's certain things, obviously one of the main things is, my weight and losing things, but that's something that I could easily change if I stick to a regimen and be strict with it, right? But things such as the other things that I had mentioned, getting into jewelry, painting my nails, and just being comfortable with the things, the media that I consume, and just the music or whatever that I'm into, I just want to do it for me, and it's for me. It's not for anybody else. It's not even necessarily for my wife. At times it's just for fucking me, and that's all that fucking matters. You got to do shit for yourself, and if you aren't, trust me, do it for yourself. Don't do it for anybody, because at the fucking end of the day, people are going to judge you regardless. Oh, your hair looks weird, your clothes isn't necessarily ironed, it's not straight, it's wrinkled, whatever. Who gives a fuck? You're having a bad hair day. People are already going to be ridicule you for the smallest of things, right? Do whatever it is, right, that you want to do for yourself. Be who you want to be, and I trust me, you're going to be much happier for it, because you're allowing yourself to be free to fucking wash away these negative thoughts, these negative connotations that you've thought. And honestly, it's a fucking process. It's not easy. It's not something that you could do overnight. It definitely takes a lot. And at times it definitely takes a lot of courage, right? Because again, you're surrounded by people that don't allow you to do that. And for you to do that still, it takes up a lot of courage. And I very much praise you for that, right? It takes a lot of balls, it takes a lot of guts for you to do that. And you should be very proud of yourself for allowing yourself to do that. And it doesn't have to be instantaneous. If you're doing instantaneous, fucking props to you. I'm jealous of you that you allowed yourself to just say fuck it, I'm done, I'm taking off this uniform and I'm allowing myself to just be who I am. But understand that it's also okay if it's a process, doing small things, whether it be wearing jewelry, whether it be, painting your nails, or just doing whatever it is. It doesn't have to be that. Do it for yourself, because again, you matter. Your opinion of yourself is probably the one that matters the most. So I'm going to leave it at that. I know it wasn't the longest episode, but I hope that you guys could take something out of it, because I definitely had to learn to move on from these toxic ideologies, these toxic masculinity ideas that plague the youth. And it's unfortunate that it does. Um, and I trust me, you're going to be way happier for embracing the things that you like and for being who you feel like you really are. So thank you guys so much for listening or watching. If you guys enjoyed it, please remember to subscribe. We're on the road to 900 at this point, 900 subscribers. I said followers last time, but we're nearing 900 fucking subscribers. So hit the subscribe button. Check us out on Spotify. This is also on Spotify. If you prefer to listen to it, you're on your day to day doing whatever it is that you're doing, you want to listen to it, go ahead and check it out there. Links down below in the description. Thank you guys so much for everything, for listening, for watching. Have yourselves a damn good weekend. You guys are beautiful. Don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. Bye. Let's get it.